But the past 2 decades have really seen monumental changes in agricultural and food supply systems. And these changes have meant that we need to adopt new strategies and approaches for reducing losses. And I'd like to highlight a couple of the key differences or the changes that we have to take into account when looking at food loss reduction strategies today. One of the key changes has been a shift of emphasis from looking at losses at the farm level, which is typically what much of the work in the 70s and 80s encompassed, to now looking more holistically along losses along the entire value chain. And another key change is the recognition of the key role that the private sector plays in the reduction of food losses. Reduction of food losses is not just the responsibility of the government or of the development partners, but it's something that critically has to be undertaken with the private sector in mind. So in 2011, FAO embraced the opportunity to partner with Messe Düsseldorf and Interpack on the Safe Food Initiative in order to achieve these objectives of food loss reduction in this new era. And I'm really pleased that since 2011, Safe Food has grown from strength to strength. We now have a membership of over 500 companies and organizations that are all committed to the fight against food loss and waste. So a little bit about today's program. We have quite a rich program today. We will be sharing experiences of government and development partners in assessing the extent and cause of losses in selected food supply chains and some of the solutions that have been identified to reduce them. But most importantly, we are also going to hear from Africa's private sector, from the small and medium agro-industries, and the processing and packaging solutions and other innovations that they have implemented to reduce losses in their respective food supply chains. And we are very fortunate today to have speakers from across the African continent. We will be hearing from Benin, Burundi, Cameroon, Nigeria, Uganda, Zimbabwe, as well as, of course, from Kenya. And they will be sharing their experiences with us today. So we very much hope that you enjoy the program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning. My name is Isabelle Chanteau. I'm with the Safe Food Initiative from the very beginning, and I'm very happy to welcome you here for the third time. And I'm extremely happy that Stephanie and FAO organized the Safe Food Day today and put together a really interesting program. I hope you will find it as informative and as interesting as we do. And I would now like to give the word to the FAO representative here in Kenya to say a few words. Please, Rob.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I start, I want to refer to some of the research that has been done on the Safe Food Initiative in the recent past, highlighting the food losses globally. And they paint a pretty bleak picture. Almost half of the fruits, vegetables, roots and tubers that are produced globally are lost, as is 35% of the fish and seafood, 30% of cereals, and 20% of milk and meat. So whilst we have serious problems with food insecurity and hunger, particularly in this region, thousands of tons of food are wasted every day. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what the Safe Food Initiative is about. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, we are committed to end hunger by 2030. But we must do this in a sustainable way. And whilst the global population is increasing rapidly, the area under food production is not. So if we're able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, on top of producing more food, which has its limits as we can only squeeze a certain amount out of an acre of soil, we need to save more food. So if I go back to the research that Save Food has done, a little more analysis shows that although the sub-Saharan region loses least food through consumption, which means basically that we are the most efficient food consumers in the world in this region. The bulk of our food losses, with the exception of meat, occur in the post-harvest and distribution components of the value chain. The post-harvest treatment of agricultural produce is therefore of critical importance if we're going to cut down on food losses. This can involve the processing and packaging of food, the drying and storing of agricultural produce as well. In Kenya alone, the losses to maize incurred through storage, through poor drying and poor storage infrastructure are astronomical. The ministry recently destroyed over 155,000 bags of maize due to aflatoxin contamination at a total cost of 624 million shillings. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. That represents the maize that was within government storage facilities. A huge amount of maize in this country is held on farm. What happens to that maize? How much of that maize is discarded? How much of that maize, despite the fact that it is contaminated with aflatoxin, actually enters our food chain? And this, within this country, within this region, is a massive concern. It is also where FAO comes in. Under the Save Food initiative, with funding from Norway, we're working with farmers and the various players within the agricultural sector to raise awareness on the importance of aflatoxin, to improve drying and storage practices, and to put in place coordination systems and policies that will both limit food losses and protect consumers. If we're to do this alone, however, we will not be successful, as the scale of the problem is well beyond the capacity limits of one individual organisation. Therefore, in order to enable change at the level necessary to significantly reduce food loss, we need to work with companies in the food sector, from processing and packaging to retail. We need to work with consumers so that they're able to understand the risk from aflatoxin and demand their rights to safe food. If we are able to do this, starting with maize but then moving on to other agricultural products, we will be able to have an impact on the level of food loss in Kenya and contribute to the overall goals of saving food globally. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning. My name is Katrina Pink, and I work in communications and partnerships with the Safe Food Initiative. So today I would like to give you an overview of Safe Food, and I would like to start off by first explaining what food loss and waste is. So food is lost and wasted throughout the supply chain, from initial agricultural production down to the final household consumption. In medium and middle income countries, food is to a significant extent wasted at the consumption stage, meaning that it is discarded even if it is still suitable for human consumption. In low income countries, food is lost mostly during the early and middle stages of the food supply chain. Much less food is wasted at the consumer level. Food loss is more of a pressing concern for sub-Saharan Africa, which a representative just explained. Though, with continued urbanization, food waste is becoming more of a concern in sub-Saharan Africa's big cities. So, food losses refer to the decrease in the edible food mass throughout the part of the supply chain that specifically leads to edible food for human consumption. Food losses take place at the production, post-harvest, and processing stages in the food supply chain. Food losses occurring at the end of the food supply chain, such as retail and final consumption, are rather called food waste, which relates to retailers and consumers' behavior. Food waste or food loss is measured only for products that are directed to human consumption, excluding feed and parts of food products which are not edible. So, considering the fact that a third of the food produced, is either lost or wasted, I think a fundamental question here is, are our food systems wired to waste? And perhaps we need to take a more systematic approach to understanding this issue in order to combat it properly. Now, in sub-Saharan Africa, as previously explained, the food losses occur at the production and retail stage, at the production stage, while there's extensive production and retail losses outstrip losses at the consumer stage. Sorry. So the causes. FAO strategy, the global initiative on food loss and food waste, Safe Food, takes a system perspective. Food systems encompass activities related to the production, processing, distribution, and preparation and consumption of food, and the outcomes of these activities contribute to food security, the environment, and economic development. The approach to reduce food losses and waste is embedded within the broader concept of promoting sustainable food systems, which also encompasses sustainable food production on one hand and sustainable diets and consumption on the other. New strategies and interventions should take in consideration the socio-economic dynamics among different actors and their respective capacities to prevent food losses and waste. And some of the selected impacts of food losses in sub-Saharan Africa here are reduced incomes for vulnerable groups, and this leads to competitiveness with foreign imports, contributing to macroeconomic imbalances, and there's a disproportionate growth of small and medium-sized agricultural enterprises, and the inability to meet the demand for packaged food, which is, quite on the rise in Africa. There's much more demand for packaged food, sub-Saharan Africa. So, Safe Food was established by FAO and Messel Dusseldorf in 2011 and engages stakeholders to reduce food loss and waste. Some of our main partners include the private sector, the food packaging industries, government and their agencies, research and academia, the donor community, bi- and multilateral agencies, financial institutions, and civil society is very important, such as NGOs, associations, etc. Safe Food has 4 main pillars: awareness raising on the impacts and solutions of food loss and waste, collaboration and coordination among worldwide initiatives on food loss and waste reduction, research to policy strategy and program development, support to investment programs and projects. We do quite a bit of work with awareness raising. We have a program in schools in different regions. As mentioned, we work with different institutions to, for example, for different forums and conferences We've coordinated a series of conferences on food loss and waste reduction, and are now compiling some of the outcomes of these conferences to sort of understand what the agenda was for this year, for 2015. Quite a number of conferences were kept, and these of course have some very useful policy recommendations on how to handle the issues of food loss and waste. We also support initiatives like Think, Eat Save, which is led by UNEP, one of our partners. Think, Eat Save works to raise the global awareness of food waste. And we foster different platforms like our Community of Practice on Food Loss Reduction, which works on post-harvest loss issues and is largely online. And for us, it's very important that the collaboration takes into account not just one, sector, but all the important sectors: the public sector, the private sector, and civil society, and these feed into Save Food. Our work on, policy and strategy and program development, we've undertaken a number of field case studies using a food chain approach and a global food loss assessments. We work with companies and international organizations to support investment programs and projects. We have a number of projects in different regions of the world, and we partner with private sector. Recently, we have signed an agreement with IMA, SPA, which is an Italian company that produces food packaging technologies, and this is supporting a number of countries this will support a number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa to sort of analyze some of the weaknesses in their food packaging sector and to develop a regional strategy. And of course, we collaborate with the Rome-based agencies in order to do so, because we don't believe in operating in silos, or we work with the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the World Food Programme to implement a RBA project funded by the Swiss government. So Safe Food has partnered with the private and public sector to reduce food loss and waste. And as I said, we have a number of national and regional projects and programs geared towards food loss and waste reduction. I invite you to visit our website at www.fao.org/savefood. It's available in English, Spanish, French, and I thank you.